Narsil. Most tales of great swords speak of the doom they bring to their enemies, but the story of Narsil is the story of a kingdom itself, forged, broken, and forged again. Its lineage begins not with a king, but with a dwarf smith. It was forged in the First Age by Telchar of Nogrod, the greatest craftsman of his time. The blade passed into the hands of the lords of Andunia on the island of Númenor, the greatest kingdom of men ever to exist. When Númenor was drowned for its pride, the sword was carried to Middle-earth by the faithful survivor, Elendil. It became the blade of the High King. For over 100 years, it was a symbol of the new, united realms of Arnor and Gondor. But its defining moment was its end. In the War of the Last Alliance, on the slopes of Mount Doom, Elendil faced the Dark Lord Sauron. The king fell, and as he did, Narsil was shattered beneath him. His son Isildur seized the hilt shard, and with the broken blade, he cut the One Ring from Sauron's hand. The Dark Lord was defeated, but the sword that made it possible was broken, its light extinguished. For 2,500 years, the shards of Narsil were kept as an heirloom of Isildur's heirs, the Rangers of the North. Its glory was a forgotten heirloom, its story a faded rumor. Then, at the Council of Elrond, its purpose was renewed. The shards were reforged by the elven smiths of Rivendell. It was renamed Andúril, the Flame of the West. Its new blade was traced with the emblems of the king, the 7 stars of Elendil, the crown of the High King, and the moon and sun. It was not merely a weapon, it was a heraldic device and a legal claim. When Aragorn revealed it, it was a challenge to the stewards of Gondor and a declaration of war to the Dark Lord. It could shatter lesser weapons, and its very presence broke the morale of Sauron's servants. They knew what it represented, the return of the king. The sword that was broken was not just remade, it was fulfilled. Gurthang. If Narsil is the story of a kingdom restored, then Gurthang is the story of a soul destroyed. This blade was not a symbol of hope, but an instrument of fate. It began not as Gurthang, but as Anglachel. It was forged by the dark elf El, a master of metals who worked in shadows and malice. The sword was made of iron from a fallen star, and it was said to have a dark heart, cold and unforgiving. Its first great wielder was not its last. The Elf King Thingol received the blade and gave it to his greatest captain, Beleg Strongbow. Beleg was a hero, a friend to all. He wielded Anglachel on his quest to rescue his comrade, Turin Turambar, who was lost and enslaved. But in a cruel twist of fate, in the darkness of Tor Nufuin, Turin mistook his rescuer for an enemy. He wrestled the sword from Beleg and killed his dearest friend with it. The blade, stained with the blood of the noblest of elves, was reforged for Turin. He renamed it Gurthang, the Iron of Death. It became the central weapon in his war against the dragon Glaurung, one of the first and greatest of Morgoth's creatures. In a feat of sheer courage, Turin thrust Gurthang into the dragon's soft underbelly, delivering a mortal wound. But Glaurung's dying words wove a final, devastating deception, revealing that Turin had unknowingly married his own sister. Broken by this horror, his life in ruins, Turin turned to the only companion he had left. He held Gurthang and asked the sword a question. "Will you now take Turin Turambar and slay me swiftly?" And from the sentient blade came an answer. "Yes, I will drink your blood, that I may forget the blood of Beleg my master, and the blood of Brandir slain unjustly. I will slay you swiftly." Turin fell upon the point of his own sword. Gurthang, the Iron of Death, had fulfilled its name in the most literal and tragic way possible. It was buried with him, a final, silent testament to his cursed line. Gurthang's story is the ultimate tragedy. It was a blade that brought ruin to every hand that held it, a character in its own right, and the physical manifestation of the curse of Morgoth that hung over the children of Húrin. The sword of the Witch King. The blades of kings and heroes were made to defend, to rule, or to conquer. But the sword of the Witch King of Angmar was created for a singular, terrible purpose. Not to end a life, but to enslave a soul. This was a Morgul-blade, forged not in the fires of a dwarf smithy, but in the sorcerous pits of Minas Morgul, the tower of black sorcery. It was a physical extension of the Witch King's own power, cold to the touch and gleaming with a pale, sickly light. Its design was an act of pure malice. The blade was enchanted to shatter on impact. A fragment would break off and begin traveling through the victim's body, seeking their heart. This was not a poison, but a transformation. The victim would slowly fade, their body and spirit turning into a wraith, a new, undead slave bound eternally to the will of the Nazgul. Its most critical strike occurred on the ruins of Weathertop. There, the Lord of the Nazgul himself faced the ring-bearer. He stabbed Frodo Baggins in the shoulder, and the Morgul-blade shattered as designed. The shard began its slow, agonizing journey towards the Hobbit's heart. This single thrust set a desperate clock ticking for the entire world. Had the Elf Lord Elrond not intervened in Rivendell, Frodo would have become a wraith long before reaching Mount Doom. The quest would have ended in the most catastrophic failure imaginable, the ring-bearer becoming a new servant for the Dark Lord. The hilt and remaining shards were sealed away in Rivendell, a dark relic of a narrowly averted doom. Glamdring and Orcrist. After tales of tragedy and corruption, the story of Glamdring and Orcrist is one of legend reclaimed. These blades represent a glory long vanished, returned to the world precisely when they were needed most. They were born in the lost elven city of Gondolin, forged in the First Age for its greatest lords. Glamdring was made for Turgon, the king of Gondolin himself. Its mate, Orcrist, was wielded by a noble of his court. For centuries, they were the terror of the orcs in the Goblin Wars, earning their names, Foehammer and Goblin Cleaver. When Gondolin fell, the swords were lost. For nearly 6,000 years, they lay in darkness. Their rediscovery was as humble as their origins were glorious. They were found in a troll horde by Thorin Oakenshield and company. The wizard Gandalf claimed Glamdring, and Thorin took up Orcrist. In their hands, the ancient weapons woke from their long slumber. The orcs of the Misty Mountains recognized them instantly, crying out in fear at Beater and Biter, the very blades that had haunted their kind for ages. Their fates then diverged. Orcrist was laid upon Thorin's tomb in the Lonely Mountain, its light extinguished, a final honor for the fallen king. Glamdring, however, fought on. It was carried by Gandalf through the Battle of the Five Armies, the quest for Erebor, and to the very end of the Third Age. They were lost legends found by chance. Angrist. While other swords were made for kings and wars, one blade had the most audacious purpose of all, to steal from a god. This is the story of Angrist, the ultimate heist tool. It was forged by the same hands that created Narsil, the dwarf smith Telchar of Nogrod. But where Narsil was a kingly blade, Angrist was a master thief's key. Its edge was so keen, its craft so perfect, it could cut through any metal, even iron, as if it were soft wood. Its wielder was Beren, a mortal man on an impossible quest. His mission, to retrieve a Silmaril from the iron crown of the Dark Lord Morgoth himself. In the deepest dungeons of the fortress of Angband, Beren used the knife. With a single, precise cut, he pried a Silmaril loose from the crown. The Jewel of Light was in his hand. Emboldened by success, Beren attempted a second cut to take another. But the blade's fate was sealed. It pressed against the unyielding iron and shattered. The sound of the breaking blade echoed in the silence, alerting the guards. The shattering of Angrist was not just the loss of a tool. It ended the heist and led to Beren's capture. He stood before Morgoth empty-handed, save for the one jewel he had already won. Angrist's story is one of breathtaking precision, not overwhelming force. It is a flash of daring in the long history of Middle-earth. It succeeded in the greatest theft ever accomplished, but its breaking marked the narrow line between legendary success and utter catastrophic failure. Aranruth. Some blades are remembered for a single great deed. Aranruth's legacy is the weight of two lost kingdoms. It was never just a weapon, it was a scepter of power. This was the sword of Eleuthingol, the High King of the Elves of Beleriand. In the hidden enchanted kingdom of Doriath, protected by the girdle of Melian, Aranruth was the ultimate symbol of Thingol's rule. It was not merely carried by the king, it was the king's authority made steel. After Thingol's tragic death and the fall of Doriath, the sword did not vanish. It was carried from the ruins of Middle-earth across the sea to the island of Númenor, the greatest gift to the race of men. There, it became an heirloom of the kings, a tangible thread connecting them to the lost glory of the elven kingdom of old. But the pride of Númenor grew until it challenged the gods. The island was drowned in a cataclysm known as the Downfall, swallowed by the sea. And with it, Aranruth was lost forever. It was not broken in battle, nor did it slay a great foe. Its power was entirely symbolic. It represented the majestic peak of elven power in Doriath and the noble beginning of the realm of Númenor. In its loss, it represents the end of both. Aranruth is the ghost of a golden age, a king's sword at the bottom of the sea. After the swords of kings, demons, and legends, there is Sting. It proves that the greatest influence is not always born from destiny, but from necessity. It began as an elvish dagger from the lost city of Gondolin, a sibling to Glamdring and Orcrist. Forged in the First Age, it was lost for millennia until a hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, found it in a troll horde. To an elf, it was a dagger. To a hobbit, it was a perfect sword. Its power was not in ruling, but in warning. The blade glowed with a cold blue light whenever orcs or goblins were near, a constant guardian in the dark. It passed from Bilbo to his heir, Frodo, and was the only blade from the Shire to enter the land of Mordor. It defended hobbits from the giant spiders of Mirkwood and the horrors of Cirith Ungol. In the final, desperate moments of the quest, it was wielded by Samwise Gamgee to protect his master. Sting was not a symbol of a kingdom, it was a tool of survival. That's it for the blades I wanted to cover. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.